to do is this. So we have a lot of questions that you guys submitted. Got them curated. Some of them were already answered via text in the general chat. We're going to go over them anyway. We're going to kind of talk about what is Zeta, what are we trying to do here, what's the ultimate goal, and then if we have time, which we have a pretty small audience here, I think we will bring you guys up and actually have you ask your questions directly. Okay, so since I'm starting, I'm already talking. I'll just go ahead and start. So I think you guys know who I am. I was a entrepreneur first, a investor second, an educator third, and I guess now a core member of a blockchain project. It's not something that I planned on doing from the start. It just kind of morphed into that. So having seen what's going on, it does appear, obviously, we all know this, that the space is hurting. Before the crypto market dropped, the passive income space, I feel like has treated people very badly. Kind of the problem in the space is you have projects that, in my opinion, are, they're coming out with models where, they have interesting ways to make money, everything from, whether they're investing on-chain, off-chain, developing their own games or blockchains, all sorts of unique ways to try to earn profit. And kind of the problem that I've sort of witnessed looking at a lot of these is that much of it comes, more of a promise that generally never really gets fulfilled. These projects tend to take money from customers without any ability to really ever make money. The spending gets out of control. As you guys know, the emissions from nodes or whatever they're called tend to outpace any ability to ever fight them off. We have the ultimate sort of downward selling pressure that eventually begins, and then people running the projects end up kind of playing defense. So, when I saw people losing something that they worked hard for, putting their life savings into that project, whatever the project is, they're voting with confidence with their wallet, and having this lack of plan from the project kind of come into fruition. These people end up losing their hard-earned money that they worked so hard for, and it's really kind of heartbreaking to watch, frankly, because a lot of these projects, in my opinion, could be run like a business and done very well. So what I saw is things like partnerships, how money's being spent on and off chain, saying something in AMA and not fulfilling it. This is the kind of stuff, to me, is the easy side of business. It's doing what you say you're going to do and then do it. So my opinion, what's been missing is a group of entrepreneurs who've been running successful businesses before and coming in and treating their customers with, respect, dignity, honesty, the things that are just should be commonplace, in my opinion. So I want to treat all customer and community money as if it were, for example, I use this analogy, as if it were my mom's money. If I would be far more cautious about how I treat my mother's money than I would my own. I want to say what I'm going to do and then do what I'm going to say. And if I don't do it, come out and actually say why. So Zeta is the only project that I'm aware of already right now that is not only going to be making profit for its investors day one, but is profitable even before the pre-sale went live. Okay, so we're profitable before we ever took money from customers from the community. Okay, so for example, Amazon, I go back to this analogy, they popularized the review system because it's a mechanism of showing you can back up what you say you're going to do. And, I wanted to come out and show that not only can we do what we say we're going to do, but we've already done it. Right? That's the key thing. The entire goal is to invest using traditional finance, create, so much positive cash flow and profits before emissions get out of control so that you can outpace the emissions with cash and then pass that value back to the customer. So, in other words, it's very simple, delivering what you set out to do and do it, in my opinion, in a big way. And that, partnering with people like Gaxis, for example, they have over $6 billion in asset management. That's with a B. They've grossed over $100 billion. They've been in traditional finance, serving high net worth clients for 15 years. These are professionals in making money. And it's, in my opinion, what the space is missing the most. Professionals who know how to make money beyond taking customer money and putting it back into the blockchain, into validators, what ends up happening is the market crashes, your project crashes as a result. There's really no ability to weather that storm. So, in my opinion, kind of to summarize this again and to top off what I'm saying is Zeta is really a response to what my opinion is a terrible space that's treated every one of you so badly. Okay, it's a response to the space that, in my opinion, is kind of taking you for a ride and has failed to deliver. People had asked me to build a project, and I love this community, and I believe this community is far smarter than the people running the projects. And that's why I wanted to build Zeta Capital based on your feedback and based on what you want to give the community something that, in my opinion, they can actually be proud of. Very simple, guys. Ask them what they want, let them tell you, then give them what they want, and do it in a way that's not been done before. And that, in my opinion, is what Zeta Capital is. So that's my bicentennial moment, if you will. Gavin, you want to tell us a little bit about you, what Zeta is trying to do, just kind of from your perspective?
Certainly. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Gavin Minty. I am the CEO of Zeta Capital. My background, I spent 8 years in the United States Marine Corps. I served around the entire globe, from 3rd Marine Division in Okinawa, Japan, to Marine Forces Central Command in Bahrain. After that, I went to work for the Marine Corps Network Operations Center as a contractor. That led to me switching to the US EPA as a federal civil servant. For the last 3 years, I've been in IT consulting and state and local government down here in Texas. Prior to that, I've attempted to have different nonprofits and corporations that I've set up. However, I always just came back. My servant leadership and servant's heart always brought me back to public service. I enjoy it. I enjoy the programmatic integrity of federal and state and local service. So here, when I got recruited by Gaxis, I think the intent is that I will bring programmatic and project management leadership. My job is to own the outcomes, the future vision, strategy, and culture of the company to match the intent of the customers and members that you bring, Showtime. So I think whereas I focus on the business, positive business outcomes and business problem sets, you keep us focused on the heart of the customers. And that is my place here. And that's what I hope to do. I hope to drive value by forging strong, quickly returning, high yield partnerships. I think that we can see that evident in sort of the partnerships we've already formed. From day one, Zeta does not stand alone. We are part of a conglomeration of corporations, as well as partnering with market leaders on our current blockchain, such as Pangolin. And we'll talk more about that later. But hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your trust, and I'm looking forward to serving you.
Thank you, Gavin. More concise than I am. Dan, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, a little bit about Gaxis and why Gaxis partnered with Zeta.
Yeah, hi guys. So my name's Daniel Kingsley. Okay, I'm one of the core team members of Zeta, and chief fund manager for Gaxis Holding. Okay, we're a Swiss entity, regulated entity. Personally, I've been in wealth and asset management for over 10 years, and in the crypto space for the last 5 or 6 years. Okay, I'm a massive believer that the crypto is the future of finance. Which is why I'm especially excited about, this partnership with Zeta and the fund in general. Okay, my position will be, handling the relationship directly between Zeta and Gaxis and that partnership, and overseeing ultimately where capital is allocated and obviously making sure that, it's effectively utilised. Okay. Number one reason I'm excited about this project is because this traditional model is flawed, and I believe that there's a key number of ingredients that need to be implemented into this system to correct it. Okay, so that obviously these sort of models become sustainable and ultimately bring value to the community. Okay. In relation to Gaxis, just going back to that partnership, obviously from a financial and wealth management standpoint, obviously a lot of these models they haven't brought in any sort of regulation, okay, or compliance or any sort of actual financial management. This is why I believe it will be so effective. to have that partnership with a company that obviously specializes in that area. A lot of projects, and I think people underestimate how hard it is, really. Obviously, raising the capital is very easy. It's hard to effectively place and allocate that capital correctly, and ultimately build a portfolio, okay, that can sustainably produce X amount per day, per month, per year. And obviously, ultimately, that's the main problem that I've seen in this model. I think you'd agree, Showtime.
Yes, absolutely. And that's where a partnership like Axis comes into play because, like I say, you guys are professionals at making money, right? And when you marry that with the ability to pass that value onto the blockchain, you really have, in my opinion, kind of a beautiful sort of situation there. We have a lot of different questions. Before we get into that, I just want to say that kind of the format of this is very informal. The format moving forward with these AMAs is to actually live stream these to our social media. So it'd be live streamed simultaneously to YouTube, to Twitter, make it more of an interactive environment because I think people forget that not everybody's on Discord. A lot of people don't even know what Discord is. So this is very informal to get this out there and to kind of talk to you guys and answer your questions quickly. But just to let you know, moving forward, this is going to be a lot more streamlined, in various different ways and kind of make a very different sort of experience. So if there's nothing else, guys, I'd like to just hop right into these questions and get into the meat of this. What I have here is a whole bunch of questions. We'll do our best to get through them. And let's just start with the very first one. How many zones were procured during this private presale, and what are the rough targets for the presale zones? In other words, like, what are we actually looking to sell and go up to during the presale? We're not committed to any certain level per se. It's not like if we don't hit these, we're not going to launch, but we're looking at between 12 and 15,000 zones. We're still launching if we don't hit that, but that's kind of the overall goal. Okay. Anytime that you guys want to hop in, Gavin or Dan, and expound on what I'm saying before I move on, just feel free to unmute, start talking over me. It's totally fine. But let's do the next question. So hopefully that answers that. The next question is, what is the end goal of Zeta Capital?
To create a bridge between DeFi and TradFi. Everyone's talked about how they're trying to do this. I believe that we are the first ones to actually tangibly make it happen. Like you said earlier, Showtime, I think we need a project that's run by entrepreneurs who know how to serve their customers and how to leave people feel well handled and feel like what they procured is what they walked away with.
Yep. I have nothing else to say on that.
I think just on that point, obviously, the main goal as well to achieve is obviously the sustainability, of the overall model, and obviously making sure that we do that in the most risk-adverse possible way,
Yes, agreed. Agreed, absolutely. Somebody wants to know if we are going to be creating like a organizational chart showing who does what, whose responsibility is whose. Remember, guys, Zeta hasn't launched publicly yet, so new startups, you have everybody kind of doing everything, if that makes sense. It's just how startup life sort of is. But yes, once we launch publicly and have everybody's responsibilities kind of outlined, yes, there will be some sort of organizational chart showing you who does what inside of Zeta.
And then also to extrapolate on that, to be fair, some people, we are a private company and some people don't want their information public. So their billet will be listed and maybe a pseudonym, but there's no guarantee that we're going to tell you John Smith, who lives at 99 Apple Tree, is our project manager, for example. And I hope that's acceptable for everybody. But you will know who's a part of the team and which billets we have actively working. And then for the most part, the majority of our professional partnerships will be made transparent because, of course, we want to brag about the people that are partnering with us.
Yeah, I think that's important. That there'll be a large amount of transparency. In order to make the community feel comfortable enough, anyway, for everyone to feel comfortable. I think.
Correct. But it's just really interesting because sometimes I'll get pulled into, write copy on something. It's totally different from what I do, but it's okay. It's because you have to have kind of all hands on deck sometimes in certain situations. So at the moment, everybody's kind of doing everything to kind of answer that question. Once we launch and people have very clear responsibilities, that will work out well. And by the way, just so to kind of share this briefly, you have like a lot of typical hierarchies of employee-employer in the United States. I know other countries have this as well. My kind of view on that, just so you guys know, is anybody who is kind of the head honcho, so to speak, should have kind of like a reverse pyramid approach where the person who's the head honcho is underneath lifting the people above him or her up. Because if you help the people below you, and I use that word, kind of tongue in cheek, if you will, you know what I mean, below, they're not below you, but on a pyramid, a typical hierarchy they are. Lifting them up and making them successful makes the company successful. That makes you guys ultimately successful as well. So it's not like, I've told the moderators this as well. You guys have input on anything that even goes way beyond just moderating. I want you to come tell me, because it only takes one idea. That one idea can come from anybody to be successful.
Correct. And to caveat on that, Matt, I addressed it earlier. We do have a servant leadership approach. One of the things I will say about our leadership style is like Showtime said, it's a reverse funnel. The idea is a bottom-up mentality. That comes from my background. I myself am a Lean Six Sigma black belt. The lean aspect is a culture of bottom-up reporting. At the end of the day, we are partnering with experts, subject matter experts, and it would not behoove me or the customers, you that I serve, if I didn't listen to somebody who I pay to be the subject matter expert. Ultimately, like I said, to caveat again what Showtime said, as the CEO, that's a title that I hold. We kind of joke around that we could use makeup titles. I tend to be the chief glue officer. My job is to make sure that all the different program areas are working in simpatico. We don't have a top-down approach. Everybody has a subject matter expert in a program or a field, and we listen to what they say. That way, when we get questions like this, we go to them, we listen to what they say as the experts in their practice area, and then we apply it and relay it to you. So to be fair, all the core members will be made known to you. And we do intend to listen to the people that we have contracted and reached out to, and we will listen to their advice.
Chief Glue Officer. I love Chief Glue Officer.
Love it. Elmer's, baby.
I think just touching on that, yes. Exactly what Showtime and Gavin have said. Obviously, I won't look to get involved in areas that I'm not an expert in. And I think that is probably one of the core problems with a lot of the models, where they don't have a structured system. Everybody would, that is an expert in their field would obviously only be involved in that area of the business. Obviously, everybody at the minute, like you said, is doing everything, and that's in order to push this to be as successful as possible initially, so that we hit the ground running. But ultimately, we have, experts in their field in different areas of the fund, the business, that will ultimately, obviously, be able to guide us in the right direction,
Yeah, and Dan, just to clarify, when it comes to making investments, for example, you're investing in real estate. You have a group of real estate experts. You're investing in precious metals. You have a group of experts that invest in precious metals and know what to do. Isn't that correct?
Correct. That's exactly right. Obviously, the model works the same way for every business. Yeah. So even Gaxis obviously has a hierarchy. It has a structure in place, where I would even go to, as you say, the real estate team in relation to those deals. I may oversee the operations of and the structure of a deal, and ultimately may, come down to me to actually execute the deal. But that deal will have been presented and brought to the table by somebody that identifies, obviously, value, in that particular field. Yeah. And ultimately, even analysts, are the core team of any financial management company. Yeah. Even the big banks, the analysts are the ones that are maybe not on the front page, of their business or on their website, but they ultimately are the ones that are producing the information and identifying deals in order for those businesses and those banks to make money. Yeah.
Yeah. The analogy is sort of like, if you're hurting, you go to a doctor. You come to me and you're hurting, you're in a lot of trouble because I'm not a doctor, right? So we want to leave that to the experts.
Exactly.
Exactly. So somebody's asking if we will do a reveal on the investment revenue and profit percentages, velocity of profit generation. Now that we're not really rushing to launch anymore, we're going to be working on a V2 white paper, which will include pages on the current investments and kind of break it down more specifically. In order to get this into the marketable pre-sale sort of launch, we had to remove certain things just because certain data is not back yet. So rather than waiting, we just said let's just put this out there, and as we get closer to launch, we'll have a V2 white paper that will have a lot more stuff in it. And additionally, the website will have a dashboard along with the documentation, the legal partnership documents. You could take those documents, guys, download them, provide them to your attorney and say, hey, look at these. Are these legal partnerships? Are these investments looking good? And your attorney will say, oh, yeah, they are. Where'd you get this from? Well, we got it from a crypto project. I don't know that that's ever been done. And yes, additionally, we will have a dashboard on the website showing all the on-chain data, not to mention the quarterly financial audits done by a third party as well.
Correct. And I'm sorry I wasn't able to add in earlier, but
Sure.
like you and Dan said, we are very fortunate. I think we're in a privileged position to be sitting on the shoulders of some giant heads. We have a phenomenal team working in the background, and it's a privilege to be able to present their work. And I want to make sure that they always get the credit they deserve.
Yes.
This is not a 3-person show by any means.
Nope.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just touching on that, Showtime, you're 100% right in what you were saying in relation to the transparency of the contracts and documents. So we already have, obviously, a lot of that work already done. Yeah, we have contracts that have been signed. We have deals that have been executed. We can obviously provide, as you say, auditing reports, and everything will be available on the website. Okay, ultimately, you will be able to download everything, and that will be updated daily. Okay, so in when I say daily, I mean if a deal is executed using the capital from Zeta, that deal, will be displayed for community members. So you guys will be kept in the know every step of the way. In relation to any deals or any capital utilized. Yeah.
Wait a minute. You mean it's going to be more than just a Discord announcement? You're actually going to be able to see the real documentation in the audits?
You're terrible.
Just saying.
Yes, sir.
That is correct. Yeah.
Sorry, it's a little too easy. It's a little too easy. Somebody's asking how many. Oh, go ahead. You want to add on to that?
Well, I was going to say, and again, ladies and gentlemen, I know that it's there's always a lot of promises in this space, particularly early. But like we said, not only are we going to tell you what we did, we're going to do it. We're going to tell you how we did it. So what Dan just said right there, our company has already launched, as you see in our white paper, with over 100 million euros in asset-backed finances. That's how much Gaxis believes in this project.
Has a lot of capital insurance. All right. Next question. Somebody wants to know up to how many zones can the model work? That number is roughly 700,000, give or take. So that's also dependent on daily growth and things like that. But the number is about 700,000 zones, give or take. Now, keep in mind, your zones expire in 1 year. Okay, so there's going to be people who build day one that in 1 year won't be there. So as the velocity of growth happens and continues to occur, it can occur up to 700,000 before a new token needs to be minted.
Showtime, if I might caveat on that, sir. So to add to that, we actually can go beyond 700,000, but with the math sims that we ran, when you look at just how we organically grow and sort of why we went with this system, with the natural pruning controls that we put into place, we anticipate with the amount of users that we think are in the market, we anticipate that our project will get to around 700,000 zones. And then with just natural pruning and new growth, that's where we anticipate it'll get to. We've ran simulations where we've gotten up to 800,000 or more. However, we try to stay realistic with our growth rates, and I think that we've listed our growth rates in Discord already. We play around with the percentages: 20% weekly growth, 10% weekly growth. As we get larger, we're fighting a mathematical problem set of compounding, and so we've addressed all of that in our tokenomics, and of course, we'll have members of our team that were more intimately involved in the mathematics curating, and they will be made available to the public, and they'll be able to answer any of your more hardcore questions. But I just wanted to add on to that because that's not a hard set goal. And when people think about the longevity of this project, I don't want them to think vertically. To be frank, I want them to think horizontally. The length of this project, if we execute, is infinite. Phase 1, as we know it with the Zeta 1 token. Sorry if I'm getting on to advanced questions, but just very proud to present this. And we have about a 2 to 3 year run rate with the current tokenomics, and we outline at a very high level how we're going to manage the execution of phase 2.
Yeah, and there's other questions, by the way, that we're going to get to here, and that will allow us to kind of expound on that a little bit more. So
I apologize. They're kind of related a little bit.
You're getting ahead. No, dude, you're excited about it. It's fault. It's all good. So some people want to know that, there are some people in Zeta that have been with other projects. Can you kind of explain the, experience that they're bringing to the table? What is it they like about Zeta? What attracted them to it? I think I could just kind of speak for myself. I've been involved with other projects, sign NDAs with other projects, advise on other projects, and that could be anything from someone says, hey, can you kind of do a video on our project? And I only do that, by the way, if I'm actually an investor, right? I actually have to be an investor and I have to believe in it. And it could also be to the degree where they're like, hey, can you just look at our white paper, look at our tokenomics and tell us what you think? All sorts of things. As you have a following, you just get this stuff all the time. And if the project looks like it has merit, I certainly want to give them advice and opinions, right? What I like about what we're doing here is kind of I look at things through the 80-20 rule. I think you guys know that. There's only a small handful of things you need to do to actually get 80% of the way. A lot of people spend their time on the 80% of things that only gets them 20% of the results, spinning their wheels, wasting time, stuff like that. So I kind of look at life and business through the 80-20 rule. And for me, when it comes to Zeta, for example, the 80-20 of all 80-20s is making money. Let's just be simple. We're here to make money, right? I mean, I know you guys are here to make money. A lot of people are here to make money in this space. The problem, in addition to that, is you have these projects failing in some of the most elementary things, such as transparency, communication, integrity, doing what they say they're going to do. And at the end of the day, if you're doing all those things, show them. Don't just say it, show them. So what I like is here are the actual documents. Here are the actual audits. Here's where your money went. Here's how your money's being spent. Here's the profits we're pulling in. By the way, before you bought in, we were already making money. That's the stuff to me that should just be commonplace, but it's not, unfortunately. So when there's an opportunity to partner with folks like Gaxis, to bring in smart people like Gavin, like other people involved in marketing or finance and things like that, that includes you guys too, because I think I've shared this in the Discord. If I haven't, I'll say it now. 2 different groups, the people who participate in the whitelist, you guys are an asset because you guys are taking kind of a risk early on with the project, and you're putting your money where your mouth is, so to speak, and you have confidence in us early on. I want you guys on monthly calls. I want to hear what you guys think. You guys are an asset. And the people who are invested in this project who maybe didn't get in early but still have backgrounds in banking. I know someone who said they worked for a top 5 bank for the last 15 years who reached out to me and want to help. I know people who are work for like regulated investment advisors. They say, hey, I want to help. I know people in blockchain, they say they want to help. These are assets. These are people you bring into the project. Give them a voice. Let them tell you something, because a lot of founders in other projects, it's kind of like they skip over these people. I don't know if it's because they don't think that they are at their level. I'm using an air quote. You can't see me. But the bottom line is, I say anybody can give you an idea. The CEO of a company could talk to the janitor, just as an example, and the janitor can come up with $1 billion idea, And if you write the person off, you'll never know what that idea is. So I want to bring people into this space. I want to give them what they deserve. And I want to show them that we're actually doing what we say we're going to do. So from somebody who's been involved in other projects before in this space, that's kind of what attracted me to Zeta and kind of what I feel the space needs. I don't know if, Gavin, you've been involved in other companies. If you want to comment on that.
Certainly. My answer might be a little more succinct. I've worked around the Gaxis ecosystem for the last 8 years or so. We work with similar companies. We've invested in similar projects. So when I was approached by Dan and Brad, and we started talking about this space, and we started talking about it philosophically and sort of how we would see the practical applications of velocity of coins, when we're talking about the coin theory behind how do we move and how do we treat this commodity, how do we do this, how do we make sure that where's the value come from when the customer does this, what do they think they're going to get? Let's put ourselves in this mindset. How do we ensure that even if we said one thing, if we understand that another's communicated and understood, how do we make sure that we deliver on what's heard and what's understood at the same time, so there's no misunderstanding when it comes time to write the checks? And I think that through just sort of talking out the theory behind the application, when they invited me to join them in this project and come work with them, there's not a force on this planet that could have stopped me. So that's all I'll say about that. It's an amazing opportunity to be able to serve people with a product where I have ultimate say over the outcomes.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, just if I can interject there as
Please
well.
do.
I mean, with relation to the excitement surrounding Zeta, my real excitement comes from the fact that obviously in the regulatory world, okay, of financial management, there is a lot of red tape, yeah, from a compliance standpoint. So when you're utilizing capital and raising capital, and then basically you go to execute the deals, the trades, however you're going to manage that capital, ultimately in a regulatory environment, there is a huge amount of red tape. Okay. With Zeta, the excitement for me was the fact that obviously we're bringing Zeta on theoretically as a client, and because we're ultimately a shareholder, large shareholder of Zeta, there's a few opportunities, or there's a lot of opportunities, in fact, sorry, out there that you wouldn't usually invest into from a regulatory standpoint, yeah? And also those opportunities can be brought to the table ultimately for the community, yeah? And obviously, in relation to Gaxis, it usually caters for, well, it does in fact just cater for private high net worth individuals, okay? Now, a lot of opportunities in the investment world, okay, take a minimum investment level that is astronomically high, okay, to get involved in something that actually is going to aggressively perform, okay, and that is sustainable. Now, if you were to go to a financial management office or a private financial advisor, they can usually bring to the table, investments that are looking to perform between, say, single percentiles, okay, annually. And if you were to look at a portfolio of an ultra high net worth, their portfolio outperforms almost everything. Yeah, that they're aggressively investing into projects and investments and companies that are producing triple digit returns on a yearly basis. Now, normal members of the public and private investors, they never get the opportunity to invest into these areas, okay, because it's just so high, the minimum investment level.
There's a barrier to entry the average person can't cross.
They say the rich get richer, yeah. Obviously, that comes from a fact, okay, that they have more capital at their disposal, obviously, to execute certain deals that just would not be on the table for private investors. But ultimately, if you're part of a fund like Zeta, then you're part of a community where you can put in a lower level of capital. Okay, but ultimately the capital can be utilized as a whole, yeah? So then obviously Zeta can take advantage of those opportunities. And that's what we're doing here, Obviously, if you're raising capital as a collective, then the more capital we raise, of course, the better opportunities we're going to have. Yeah, I just wanted to touch on that, yeah.
Right.
Correct.
From a regulatory standpoint, there's a lot of red tape,
Sure.
And with this particular project, it does open up, a lot more doors, I think.
Yes, sir. And if I could bring an example, just to bring tiny numbers into place, and I'm not the math guy, but it's the law of exponents, ladies and gentlemen. A rising tide raises all ships. Let's say we have two numbers, one starting number of 10,000, one starting number of 1,000. If both those numbers get 10x'd, one has 10,000, the other has 100,000. There's a huge gap between those two numbers now. Originally, the gap was 9,000. Now the gap is over 90,000. The more funds that we have, when we multiply them, we get higher yields overall. And so just to tag on to what Dan was saying, it just gives us access as people who traditionally wouldn't have access or influence to these markets to be able to participate and get the same yields. You might not have 10 million to put in, but your $10 can still get 10x the same as that gentleman's. And when our powers combine, we sort of become Captain Planet.
Captain, I remember that show. Yeah, you know, that's the other thing too is
Spent 5 years at the EPA. I apologize. Can't get it out.
Anyway, so your zones, what I like about this is it gives you real utility, right? For example, in most projects, your node or whatever you want to call it really only has one function, and that's to dump the token, right? Which, of course, people are more than welcome to take their profits. You're not going to get your zone deactivated or anything like that for doing that. However, what I like is that your zones open up a catalog of real financial services to you, real world financial services offered through Gaxis. That gives you some real use and utility out of them, right? We're also looking into NFTs and how that can play a role in the real world beyond just increasing rewards or doing anything like that. A lot of great things here planned. I just think it's really cool that your zones actually open up access to financial services. That's not been done. That to me is the true DeFi traditional finance bridge that we've been looking for. So let's move on to the next question. So someone wants to know, why do we get a reward token at all? Right? Like, why have a Zeta token? It's a value proposition, right? So as we have partnerships, it allows us to integrate with that partner. For example, if our metaverse project does very, very well, which it looks like it will, we can partner with them and bring the value over in terms of the Zeta token. So that token is our currency. That's your currency, as a customer. And the way we partner with projects is by moving that value around, and we do that via the Zeta token. Okay? Hope that helps. And by the way, there's a little bit of all these new terms. Every time you get into a project, there's new terms. The zone, XON is how you pronounce it, zone, is kind of the equivalent of a node. We don't call them nodes because they don't validate anything on the blockchain, but they're called zones. The Zeta token, when we go live, it will be the Zeta token that builds the zone, and it's the Zeta token you get rewarded in, just to kind of clarify the terminology a little bit. I'm going to pass this one to you, Gavin. So someone is asking the question, based on what math did the team decide to have a max token supply of 20 million, and how did they estimate the $100 US price to be released on the market at public launch? You want to take that one?
Certainly. So this is where I get too detailed, and Tarek will slap me for giving away the secret sauce. Basically, what we did was, when we ran our math simulations, I've explained that we've done it based on predicted growth models. And based on our predicted growth models with the natural pruning systems and controls that we put into place, as we mentioned earlier, we find a plateau of active zones that we anticipate with the amount of people that could participate in our market. What we did was we looked at how many coins we would have to plug into our system, and then we'd see how long the project went. Again, we always wanted this to be a matter of how long does it go before it breaks, instead of how high can we get up to, because we know there's a finite amount of members, and we're going to have to go out and acquire new customers eventually. But the idea was, when we were doing the maths, we were playing around with numbers of 1 million, 2 million, 12 million, 14 million. And then as we began to fine tune the numbers, allocations and whatnot, we found that when you get to a certain growth point, because ultimately the one problem that we're trying to solve is the mathematical S-curve compounding. Anyone who's looked at the gamification behind these tokenomics knows that the ultimate math problem you're trying to solve is that compounding. We believe we've done that through a natural pruning cycle. And what we found was, towards the tail end of this project, you could add millions of coins. The juice is not worth the squeeze. The diminishing returns are so large because of the compounding elements, that it's easier for us to just execute the X2 switch to phase 2. And just so everyone knows, that's not going to affect reward weights. It's not going to affect any of that kind of stuff. You're going to wake up one day, token's going to be called something different. More details to follow. But that's the reason why we chose that number. At 20 million, it was sort of that third porridge of just enough coins in circulation that we could control the velocity of the coins. We could manage a respectable timeline so that everybody has a chance to get exactly what they anticipated to get. And it gives us more time to prove the point. So when we go to make that major step to X2, there's no questions of, oh, will they really do this? We'll have an entire plethora and portfolio of times where we executed on milestones and commitments to the community. Does that answer your question, you think, sir?
Yeah, I think you answered it well. And of course, to add to that, just kind of keep in mind that as the compounding occurs, you're outpacing the emissions with profits. That's the key point. It allows you options. If you don't have any money, you don't have any options. If you have money, you have lots of options to kind of defend price points or combat compounding and things like that. So I will add
Correct.
that in
And
there.
yes, and I think that's actually another question. But we've got to the point where we have certain money sitting in accounts that we can use in order to course correct manually if necessary. So that's another thing we've accounted for is the fact that sometimes market conditions adjust, things change, and we have to have the stoicism of purpose, but alacrity of mindset to be able to appropriate funds in a very agile manner. And so we do have a certain set aside. And of course, with Dan mentioning that Gaxis is a large shareholder in our company, we'll always have their assistance when needed. And
No problem. Yeah, no, I don't have anything anything more to add. I think you guys answered that
Yeah,
question.
but I'll just add something because you just brought up something, Gavin, I think is worth mentioning. Keep in mind that Gaxis owns equity in Zeta. The reason that's important is because people will say, well, Gaxis doesn't, have any interest in seeing Zeta succeed. Oh, they do. They do because they own equity in Zeta, right? So they want to see Zeta succeed. We want to see Gaxis, make Zeta succeed and ultimately help, the customers and the community be successful. So that's kind of a great synergy there is that it's not just a partnership. It's actually an equity owning situation. It's a very different scenario than just saying,
Yeah,
sign a document and we'll help you. No. You got skin in the game and you need to see it be successful.
that's key. Yeah, I would really if you look at the perspective that we could have just taken on Zeta as a client, yeah. So like you're saying, we that option was available, but we didn't want that. We wanted to have a shareholding and an active interest, okay, in the project and how it was going to operate, okay.
Yep. And going back to you, Dan, I'm going to pitch this next question to you. People want to know how the audits work. I believe they're talking about the quarterly financial audits. Can you speak more to that?
Yeah, so Agaxis is audited by PwC and KPMG, yeah, depending on what areas of the portfolio and the company, okay, get audited. And obviously, we'll be sharing everything with Zeta, okay, just like you would with a private client. So you will get, or Zeta will have some sort of statement, okay, just like you would with any company or any fund or any business, okay, that will be presented quarterly to our community, yeah, even, okay. So it'll be another, I imagine, PDF download, okay, which will outline all of the areas, okay, that the company is invested into, the performance of those investments, okay, and those areas and those market sectors over the last quarter. And ultimately, giving you guys a fresh look, because obviously the markets change on a daily basis, yeah. So that's key, okay. Basically, being able to review the last quarter's performance, and that gives you a good idea on the forecast, of where and what position the fund is in for the following quarter.
Excellent. That's a great answer. Thank you.
We will be sharing everything, with the community. I think we all agree on that, yeah. So we'll be able to post everything through the dashboard, and you guys will see full audited accounts. I mean, Gaxis, obviously, from a regulatory standpoint, we have to be audited. I mean, we have a team of, auditors that will be looking at the accounts daily, yeah, for Gaxis at least, and our investments, and that's key, to any successful fund or business is having your ear to the ground, okay, on everything, and being able to see how everything is performing at every point, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. And Dan, can I ask a question? Since this is an informal AMA and everyone here in the audience is a personal invitee, could you just explain to everyone what an SRO is and why that's so important to Gaxis and why that's such an important element of what we're doing here?
Yeah, so it's a self-regulatory organisation, yeah. So basically, it's in the UK we have the FCA, the Financial Conduct Authority, and in America you guys have the SEC, yeah. So obviously, what it does is it just means that we have to be compliant. We have to be transparent. We have to give over our accounts, our statements, documentation. Even down to the point of email trails. Yeah, in a company. Everything gets audited. Everything. All phone calls are recorded. There is a complete rundown of everything and all of the operations of the company, and everything is backed up and saved in order to present to any financial regulatory body. Okay, if it's requested.
So keep in
Thank you,
mind,
sir.
keep in mind, we are not just partnered with. Okay, they don't just own equity in Zeta, and they're not just handling the investments, but they are a self-regulatory organization. Go and look up what that means. That has over $6 billion in asset management and serves high net worth clients, has been involved in traditional finance for over 15 years. As far as I know, I've not seen any of that kind of action in the blockchain space from anybody. So that's something to kind of bear in mind. Yeah.
And not to further gild the lily, but Dan, didn't y'all raise about 16% of the total equity for the Ethereum 2 project? So you're not new.
Correct.
You're not Johnny come latelys to crypto. Is sort of the point I want to
No,
make.
not at all. The only thing is, obviously, crypto market is unregulated. Yeah, so that's the only reason, really, that a lot of our team, can't maybe proceed in areas of the crypto market that we would like to. And that's what's so exciting about Zeta and our involvement in Zeta.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. And you had mentioned something about utilizing cash. That goes right into our next question. Somebody wants to know if we have an approximation about how much operational expenses the team would need to run the project. So I share this with Gavin. One of the shows that I really like is The Profit, Profit. You have this guy, Marcus Lemonis, who goes into businesses and kind of helps flip them from a failure to a success. One of the things
The three P's, sir.
Yes, right. That's right. And one of the things that I've noticed over and over and over again, it's a trend on that show, the failing business fail to account for their cash flow. They fail to account for their expenses. He'll go into a restaurant, for example, and say, okay, how much does this food cost to make? It costs $5. But yet you'll notice they're selling it for $3.50. They're losing money on selling their own product because they don't know the numbers, right? So cash flow, when I see a business not being run well, it's usually one thing that you'll see over and over again. It's poor management of cash and poor management of cash flow. So we want to run lean, we want to run mean, and we want to be very efficient. And since right now we're just pre-launched, the kind of expenses that Zeta is incurring is super minimal. I mean, we're talking servers and some really marginal type of things, right? When we publicly launch, anybody that is on payroll, we're talking reasonable salaries. We're talking about a staff cap. Okay, there's only so many people you need to run a company and be efficient with your cash at the same time and pay salaries that are in line with the size of the company and the direction you're going. Because remember, every dollar that you put towards something else is a dollar you can't put towards where you might need to put it. So
There's an opportunity cost at every dollar.
Yeah, 100%. And, every $1 has to have a specific purpose. That has to go out and make me $2 some way, somehow, whether that's through manpower, investments, or partnerships, or whatever that may be. So the bottom line is to kind of answer that question is when we launch, we'll have a far better understanding of the actual expenses. Right now, the expenses are almost nothing, to be honest with you. And it's all going to be budgeted and reasonable based on the size of the company. Okay.
If I could add to that
Please
as
do.
well, obviously from the financial world, obviously we make money from bonuses. Yeah, that's where that my entire life has been spent doing that. Yeah, so you almost forget your salary. Okay, and I just wanted to be clear that obviously that's going to be the ethos for Zeta. Yeah, obviously we don't want to just be taking money out of the pot, as it were. Okay, we're going to be aggressively utilizing every penny of the capital to get as much profit in as possible. I'm looking to earn my return from Zeta from bonuses, yeah, from how we perform as a company.
Yeah, a lot of
the cost, the running costs of the company, ultimately should we should end up almost them becoming mute, yeah, because obviously the company's doing so well from an investment standpoint. I mean,
yeah, absolutely,
Correct.
absolutely. So you're not robbing from Peter to pay Paul, essentially. You're
Yeah,
actually
that's the problem with this model. I think the problem with the market, the traditional model, this crypto model at least, is that exactly that. People are paying too much out in relation to costs and lining their own pockets. But if you use that capital correctly, then you would be able to line your own pocket in a sense, but obviously from the profits, yeah, not from the principal.
100%. It's how business should be run. So
Yeah.
here's this would
Well,
probably be
I'm sorry, Showtime. Before we get off on
yes,
that, I
please
think
do.
I think there was also there was sort of a question. There's the direct question, then there's the question behind the question. The majority of our operational expenditures, just to explain to people, when we put our calculations out, some of those are subject to change. What I mean is that if we find that we're running too heavy on the operations budget, we can always move money from our maintenance and operations to treasury. We just cannot ever do the opposite. So we would never take monies that are earmarked for treasury and investments and move them into something that could be spent on something else. However, we could always do the opposite. So we find that we're too flush in operations, then we can always reallocate those to investments to make sure that we're hitting higher yield marks. The other part that I wanted to mention was kind of like what Dan said, is our goal is to perform and have all of our earnings tied to performance. That way, it's not just a series of sucking money out of the operations budget. And the last thing that I will say is that the majority of our payments are not going to be to staff members in the form of direct payments. The majority of our costs we anticipate will be logistical. We're operating out of Singapore, Zurich, London, and every major hub, economic hub in the United States. So there's a certain amount of business development that has to be done in person. Of course, as a global company, we're leveraging unified communications and virtual marketing as much as possible. However, there are some certain deals at a certain gravitas levels where people want to see you, and there's certain organizational and marketing events that we need to be able to go to show that we can become a market leader. And so that's where the majority of our expenditures will be coming from.
Yep, I hope to have a first world problem of having too much in operations that you can move over to treasury. That would be a problem I would aim for, to be honest with you. So, Dan, I'm going to pass this one back to you because this probably makes the most sense. People want to know that because since we're U.S. based, is Zeta's model legal, and how do you think regulations and laws could affect this project? I'm asking you because I know the answer coming from the GAXA side will answer this a lot better than the way I would answer it.
Yeah, so the simple answer and the short answer is yes. The model is legal. Obviously, it acts as a feeder fund, which we spoke about earlier, and I've mentioned before. So as a feeder fund, that capital that's raised through Zeta, being the fund and the vehicle, to raise that capital, then goes into obviously a Swiss organization and is managed by the Swiss company. So, from a legal standpoint, Zeta is classed as a feeder fund, which is perfectly legal. Yes.
Correct. And just a caveat on that, Dan. So just so all of our members understand, as soon as your monies are placed in an order on our system, all the monies that are meant to be invested are put into a Gnosis safe and they're sent directly to Gaxis. So the money never touches U.S. soil. So as long as Gaxis continues to be in compliance with their SRO requirements, then internationally we'll be in compliance with every nation state that we hold licenses in.
Yeah, completely. You're 100% right.
Thanks for that. Appreciate that clarity. That question will come up over and over. A lot of these questions, by the way, guys, we're building out the FAQ section on the Discord. A lot of these will be in there, and they'll be placed in actually probably a lot of different locations as well. So what we go over here, there'll be transcripts, recordings, but there's also going to be a frequently asked questions section, and a lot of these questions will be posted in there as well later on down the road. So let's see. Why don't we go to...
We're going to move on to the chat questions, sir.
Yes, sir. Let's head on down to the bottom area, you mean, right? Yeah. So what DEX will the project be using? So Zeta is going to be partnering with Pangolin. We're going to have our own DEX. Okay. That DEX is going to charge a specific fee. That fee is going to go to charity, right? Because, if you don't give back, what are you really doing this for at the end of the day, right? So we are going to have our own DEX. That does a few things. Number one, it eliminates rogue contracts. It eliminates people trying to create another Zeta coin and tricking people into buying something they shouldn't be buying. And it allows us to raise funds to put back into charity. And I know Gavin's going to talk here on the charity thing in just a moment. Is there anything you want to add on to that?
No, sir, that's correct. So that means that as our system is working, all the volumetrics that's done daily, a portion of that will go to help somebody. So, I mean, without getting, well, I guess I'm about to get into the next question, but that actually means by being a Zetarian, being part of the system, whether you're a trader, a member, a client, or whatever, your actions. This is Web 3.0 in action. What you do on our system is going to go to feeding, clothing, or sheltering somebody that you will never meet in your life and never be aware of. And that's an objective reality. That's the reason why we did that.
Isn't that cool? That's, you want to give back, find a way to give back and then grow that. You can give back even more. And I just think that's cool to be part of something that can literally change the world. That, helping people who need it the most is quite literally the definition of changing the world. So I love that we're doing that, by the way.
And I don't want to give away too much alpha because I'm notorious for it. Again, everyone, our roles, Showtime is the community lead. But if I'm allowed to, I will say that we are partnered with the Alpha Foundation and more to come. I'm going to let the people that are associated with that speak on their behalf so I don't do it a disservice, but we're very proud of it.
Yes, sir. So somebody is asking, how will the money in the pre-sale be used? So if you read the white paper, you'll notice the tokenomics in there, that 50%. So if you claim, if you pay the monthly fee, any of that type of stuff is broken up. 50% of that fee goes back into the treasury for investments, 25% goes into liquidity, and 25% goes back into the operations budget. So that's exactly the same way we will be using the pre-sale funds. It'll follow that same tokenomic structure. So what that means is, hey, instead of launching day one with maybe 2 or 3 investments, perhaps we launch day one with 5 or 6 as an example, right? Which just gets even further ahead of the emissions, which gets even further ahead of any kind of downtrend or anything else, and allows us to kind of create that exponential growth curve that Gavin had spoke about earlier. So that's how the pre-sale funds intend to be used. As far as the minimum price, so someone's asking, is there a minimum price with mechanisms in place to help sustain the price, like some other projects who are trying to maintain a flat price? There are buys built into the system. However, we will be performing certain things on an as-needed basis, such as buybacks, okay, to try to fight against any kind of downtrend. And I think having profits is what allows you to do that. And by the way, not having little amounts of profits, having a large amount of profits is actually what allows you to pull that off. So, and the bottom line this as well, we're not, to use the same analogy, and we're not robbing from Peter to pay Paul. Those are earmarked budgets that are going to be used specifically for buybacks. We're not stealing from, investment funds, okay, that we could use to grow the business to go and perform buybacks. Those are profits that don't affect the operation of the business to perform those buybacks. So it's all earmarked, it's all specific to make sure that we're not draining something in light of trying to prop up a price.
Correct. And if I could just caveat on that, Showtime,
Yeah.
I apologize. My headset dropped off, so I'm not sure if you said it. You probably did, so it's just going to sound like I'm mansplaining. But the reason why we're doing that is because the monies that we have earmarked for investments need to go to investments. And if we drain our treasury trying to defend certain price points, then we're doing the community a disservice because they're not going to be getting those 10, 20x returns. So I apologize if you already said that. Small technical difficulty.
No worries. It doesn't hurt to say it again. So somebody's asking, you've partnered with an investment firm. How do you plan on using that money? Buybacks? So we kind of just answered that. So on an as-needed basis, there will be buybacks that will have to be performed. Kind of depends on the market, by the way. So that's why I can't say it's going to be every day, every month, every week, because it just sort of depends on the market, and it depends on the need in the market at that time. However, so that will be kind of performed on an as-needed basis at the end of every quarter when there's a financial audit done that we've spoken about. There will be profits left over. At that point, we will then decide and budget, okay, we need these profits based on the conditions of the business and the conditions of the market. We might need some of those profits to go back into operations. We might need some to go back into the treasury. We might need to budget some for buybacks, and potentially we can even budget for airdrops. So to answer that question, yes, buybacks on an as-needed basis. quarterly audits based on the profits in the market and the business, then allocate those funds to where they are needed the most. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So, I think question 5 is basically the same thing. Gavin, do you disagree? Is that a different kind of question in your opinion?
I'm stewing on it because, as you know, I overthink everything, and every question has layers to it. I want to answer each one like an onion. I'll go ahead and take this because Dan and I prepped it beforehand anyway. So the question, ladies and gentlemen, is how will that generate income for the community/project? The answer is we invest in projects via our partners at Launchpool to XYZ in pre-seed rounds. We also, as Showtime mentioned, we have access to the GAX's catalog of professional services. So we have private equity holdings that are looking to list on main market exchanges. We have various late-stage projects that are ready to turn over. Now, what that means, and I'll just speak plainly, is we have access to projects that are about to launch where we still can get pre-seed funding. And so one of the magic sauces we have is we can get in at a price point that's early, even when we're late, which means that the moment we take your monies and invest them, these bad boys go live and you're getting your ROA much sooner. So there's no waiting 10, 20 cycles for an ROI turnover.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just touching on that. Obviously, basically liquidity, isn't it? You know, obviously, a lot of the investments that are made into companies, they can forecast, 3 to 5 years before you're actually seeing a return. What we're looking to do is achieve, obviously, investments that are, a calculated risk investment. Yeah, so low risk as possible. Obviously as liquid as possible and aggressive, returns. They're the key factors. Yeah. So obviously for the income side of things, that would probably come from, say, high frequency trading bots and accounts that we have. Yeah. Whereas a project that we invest into that's pre-seed may take 6 months, before we see a return from that. But we will have obviously large allocations of the capital placed into liquid, what we would class as a liquid investment, yeah, which would be from the trading side.
Correct. Somebody wants to know, how did we estimate the $100 public launch price? So we know where we wanted to be when we ran this pre-sale, what our goals are to fund the business and to come out with more investments and things of that nature. Trying to make the launch as fair as possible. So that $100 price just kind of made sense, because if you have people buying in at $50, for example, and then it's $100 public launch, number one, it requires more liquidity to remain stable. Number two, people are like, oh, well, you got in, half as much as I did or double as much as I did. And there's a lot of different arguments on that. It just felt like $100 from 75 just seemed fair. It's a little bit earlier than other people, but you're also taking more risk, right? Which in this case is probably the least amount of risk that I know of in any pre-sale, being post-revenue already. But I just wanted to kind of answer what the thought process was with picking that price point for the launch of Zeta. Someone wants to know, is the $15 USD coin membership per Zon? Yes, and it unlocks a catalog of real financial services we spoke about. How long do we have before the pre-sale ends? So this is kind of the plan. So we basically opened Wednesday night, give or take, after some fixes were made. So the first week is sort of a private sort of situation. When I say private, I'm not announcing it publicly. Nobody's announcing it publicly. We ask that you don't announce it publicly. But if there's people who are hurting in this market that need something, okay, kind of the dichotomy of that is a lot of people are hurting to the degree they can't participate, which is a very sad sort of situation. But people who know people who just need a win under their belt and need to get into something, need to understand it early enough before it explodes, potentially explodes, they are allowed to do that. That will last for roughly a week. We will see where we are in terms of raising capital. And if we're not where we are, we'll be opening it up to specific communities. I know we have a AMA today, actually less than 2 hours, with Cryptonaires. So their community would have an opportunity. That will last for a week with specific communities. If we still don't have the amount we want, then we will open it up publicly for a week. and we will see where the chips fall at that point. And again, if we don't raise the amount we're looking for, it's not that we're not going to launch. We just want to do this in sort of a tiered approach to make it as fair as possible and allow people to get in early and potentially take up those spots before other people do as possible. Is there anything you wanted to add to that, Gavin, Dan?
I think you said it well, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think that was fully answered. Good job.
Okay, so we have some other questions, but what we may do is just pick a couple and then move on. I know there's a couple people that have their hands up in here, so we want to make sure you guys have a chance to come up. We're going like, an hour, give or take. So here's probably an 80-20 question I'm going to throw to Dan. Some people want to see numbers. They want to know, what have you invested in? How are you making money right now? How do you plan to make money day one? What have you put your money in? What do those returns look like? You have anything on that, Dan, you want to share with us?
Yeah, so it's going back to the website. Everything will be transparent on the website. So we obviously have already invested in projects, okay, and we have contracts that have already been signed and executed, and that will all be kind of made publicly available. I was going to say, obviously everyone will be able to download that information. We will be a lot more, if you look at the website now, compared to what it will look like in the next couple of weeks, there'll be a hell of a lot more information on there.
Appreciate it, Dan. Appreciate it.
Right, and if I could just caveat real quick, and I know we got a lot of questions we got to get to, but we actually had this debate internally of how much information was too much information. Because to be frank, we've been debating this for a long time, and so we felt there was answers the community is going to want. But if you look at our white paper, it's a pretty beefy document, and for again this personal one-on-one invite only pre-seed, whitelist round, we thought that it was enough information to wet your whistle, but that bad boy is going to be. I hope you have fiber internet. Is all I'm saying.
Too much information is not a bad thing. That's great. Thank you, Gavin.
Yeah. So the total portfolio and breakdown will be available in the form of a document that will not only be a summary document but also a detailed breakdown. Yeah. Of all the capital where it's been invested into, and obviously that will start in the next couple of weeks. You'll be able to download and do some even research yourself, guys, on some of the projects we invest into.
Yeah, and wait until you guys see the dashboard that you're going to have access to on the website through the DApp. You're going to be able to see the investments, the returns, and all that stuff that will be on there. We're aiming for prior to launch. I believe that's very attainable. So wait until you see that's going to be a very beautiful sort of system there to allow you guys to kind of see how this is all working together, as one.
And I apologize. I hate to even call it stuff. It's just all data points that people should have access to.
Well, they should and they will. That I can tell
Exactly.
you. They should and they will. Some people are wanting to know why they're getting like a pre-sale token. Why are they not getting the zone now? Why are they not getting the Zeta token now? So the goal is to try to make this as fair of a launch as possible, like I had mentioned previously. So what you see with a lot of projects that do pre-sales or whitelists is you get it in an early price, but you're getting the token. So when it ends up happening, and this would certainly happen in this market, I can guarantee you for sure, is day one, it launches, everyone dumps, price dumps, everyone gets hurt. So the way to solve that problem is to give you guys a pre-sale token. On day one, when we publicly launch, you will be able to build your zone from that pre-sale token. So you cannot dump your token on the open market. You have to build the zone. And it kind of protects you guys and it protects other people coming in from having this massive red candle just show up out of nowhere. So I hope that makes sense.
Correct. And programmatically, it made it easier for us to manage when people applied their activation fees. We didn't want to give people zones that were ineligible for activation. And so this way, you take the pre-sale token, create your zone, and then activate them.
Excellent. Why don't we answer this last one before we bring a couple people up? So people are saying, why have a phase two? Why do you have a phase one sort of a snapshot? What's kind of the deal with that? So as you guys know, with a finite number of tokens, anytime you have a finite number of tokens that have to move in velocity, such as buying them, building a zone or a node, whatever you want to call it, they go into a reward pool, they recycle back out. That's a velocity. It's the movement of those tokens, right? Anytime you have a finite number of tokens with that sort of activity, there's only so many times that activity can occur before the tokens literally run out, right? You have so many tokens moving so fast that you don't have enough tokens to actually, continue that process. So what you end up doing, or what we're going to end up doing, I should say, excuse me, is at the end of that, okay, we will make an announcement, obviously, way before it actually has to happen. But when we see that coming close, we will basically say, hey, look, guys, here's the game plan. We're going to move to a new token. If you guys remember, I'm going to name drop a project. When, some of you were in Strong Block, when they moved from Strong to Stronger, you didn't notice any difference. You went into your dashboard, same number of nodes, you were earning Stronger instead of Strong. So kind of the same concept, but we will literally mint a new token, take a snapshot of whose zone has not yet expired, and just move them over and give them the same lifespan of the zone that they had. Now, the key to this is making sure you match the liquidity one for one. So if the token's $500, you don't want to come in and have a new token and all of a sudden now it's $200. That's not going to be a very good situation. So you would literally have to migrate the liquidity over, and that may mean having to inject more cash in order to do that, which we are fully prepared to do. So the whole idea is to make it as seamless as possible for you guys, and also continue the lifespan for several more years so that you literally don't run out of tokens and the project fails. And that is the thought process behind that. You guys have anything you want to add?
I dare not.
You dare not. You dare not. Wow. We got two people who have had their hand up the entire time. And we do have some other questions, but why don't we bring these two people up and let them ask their questions. Gil Party of 7 probably deserves a trophy for having his hand up for the longest time possible.
Strong shoulders. Strong digital soldiers.
Absolutely. Gil Party of 7, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, how's it going, guys? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Loud and clear. Yep.
Well, I'm just extremely proud of everybody getting this done. It's exciting and happy to be here. I have 6 questions, and some of them may or may not be in a lot of the documentation, but I got in to read it late, and I didn't want to miss this just to read, and it's hard for me to multitask reading and listening. So if it's been talked about, great. I have 6 questions. You guys okay with that?
Take it away.
Right. And then I have one fun question at the end. All right,
42.
So, Gavin is the CEO. So what does that make you, Showtime?
Helping with business development and strategy and that type of things. Kind of the key is when we launch, we'll have this a lot more defined. Right now, we're all sort of doing everything, if I can answer that, kind of honestly.
If I'm the chief glue officer, then he's the popsicle stick.
Okay, perfect. Well, hopefully it's, a massive structure of popsicle sticks. And then, so I was reading the part I did see in the white paper. One of the questions I had was, what happens to the Zeta after the zones expire? Is it burnt, or is it recycled, or how's it
So initially, when you create your zone, all 10 of those coins instantly go to the rewards pool. That's where they go.
Okay, so basically your zone is already put into the pool.
Correct. Because sort of like, and I don't want to go on any further if you got a lot of questions, but like Showtime said before, it's one of the ways that we're managing the velocity of the tokens. And what happens is when your total supply is out, it's very difficult to control enough in your rewards pool in order to ensure that everyone's emissions go out. You just don't control enough the supply. That's part of the reason we're going to the phase 2. It'll be invisible to the customer, I guarantee it.
Oh, okay. So once the phase 2, then yeah, okay, that makes sense.
So I kind of call it like an Ouroboros system, like a snake eating its own tail. It's circular and it repeats itself, almost like an infinity symbol.
Okay, perfect. Where do the Zeta membership fees go? I think you might have started to touch on this, but I'm not sure if I missed because everything else was well defined in terms of where the fees were broken up and everything.
So right below that, I believe it's outlined in the white paper. Showtime mentioned it earlier. We treat it the way we do it was half of it goes to the treasury, the other half gets split between liquidity and operations. So 25% goes to operations, 25% goes to liquidity, the other half goes into the treasury. Okay, and then I also mentioned that those numbers may change. We may find that we want to invest more in treasury. We might find that we're ops heavy. We might find that we're liquidity heavy. Those numbers are subject to change. As per our SLA in our white paper, you will be made aware 7 days in advance to 28 days in advance.
Beautiful. Okay, and then what happens to the zones if the fees are not paid or delayed or whatever, somebody misses by a couple days? How does all that get adjusted or hurt
So
with reward?
yeah, that part has not been coded and developed yet. I could tell you
Okay.
what I want to see. Okay, how about I go there? I'll tell you how I'd like to see it handled. I've seen different projects that literally nuke your rewards if you're 1 day late.
Yeah, that's exactly.
I think
Like,
that,
what's the good side for you guys?
yeah, that's just not fair in my opinion. So I'd like to see us come up with a system where it pauses them, but gives you 30 days after that to actually pay to get them back before they are then removed. We have not coded that yet, but that's the goal that I want to aim for. We will have to talk to developers and see how to pull that off, though.
Okay, perfect. Well, fair enough on that, because obviously that's a big one in this space, because
Yep.
a lot of people are doing it a lot of different ways. So
Yes, sir.
And then also, just a caveat on that, the way that our UI is being developed, it'll be simple to do. I think, we've all been members of other projects where it's somewhat cumbersome sometimes to pay your bills. We plan on making it easy so that even if there is a delay, the onus should be on the member because I don't know how we could make it simpler.
Right, for sure. Are you kind of feeding off that statement? Are you guys going to allow for us to possibly pay the membership fees in advance, like 1 year?
That's
Yes.
great. Yes, we've discussed that internally. I think we can make that happen for sure.
Okay, perfect. That's why it's like one and done, and forget about it, and let it just ride. So,
And some
okay,
people might win waived fees in lotteries and giveaways. Who knows?
see.
We listen. You whitelisters, you have great ideas, and we're already sourcing them.
Okay, and then let's see. So one of the questions, because you guys talked about profitability and beginning with profitability, and I believe you kind of touched on this, but my question is before this AMA was how is it that you are profitable already, and how is that going to be sustainable in the future based on the influx of everyone else's money?
Certainly. So to answer that question, one, we've invested in 4 different projects, 2 of which will be profit generating. I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but what we do is we have access to pre-seed price points for projects that are getting ready to turn over. And so depending on the investment, our ROI can be anywhere between 30 days and 6 months, but it tends to be pretty quick. So what we've done is we've invested our own monies on the front end, as Dan alluded to earlier, and that is allowing us to go to market with 2 revenue generating projects, 2 others that are pending to launch. I don't want to say the other one just because it's going to be a big announcement, but we also have a 5th project that will be launching their alpha at about the same time that we launch publicly, MV.W. Sorry, I had to pull that one on you. I can't spell that one yet. And then also we have, as Dan alluded to earlier, we have arbitrage. We have trading bots, and so as of right now, we're testing out some of the algorithms to fine tune it to XetaCapital's needs, and those will continue to be fine tuned. But as of right now, we have tens of thousands of dollars being traded through bots. So as of right now, we are revenue generating. And then as more monies are added to these pots, we'll see the circulation come through. And again, just to fact check what I'm saying, if you do check out some of our partners like launchpool.xyz, again, you'll see their returns for the project that they've done historically, whether they're a 5x project, 179x project, etc. Did that answer your question, sir?
100%. Like I got a chance to run through the white paper really quickly, but I did not get the chance to look over the partnerships yet. So that helps a lot with my question. Okay, so you guys pretty much touched on the marketing side, like in terms of how much personal marketing you would like us to do. You guys already said, you already talked about that. So the other question that I would have would be in terms of the ROI. What is your outlook on how you guys look to do that? Because obviously the markets are the market. So if it was an Ethereum thing and you guys were saying, oh, we're going to give you return every month, I'd be like, well, I don't know if I want that. I want to wait till everything comes back. So what's the plan on
Certainly.
that?
Well, sir, if you look at our white paper right now, the most updated one, we confidently outline 265% APY.
Yeah,
Again,
all that.
if we had a crystal ball, I would tell you something else, but that's what we predict. If we have the coin's price be protected, it may appreciate. That number goes up, but that's what we confidently state right now is 265 APY. Did that answer your question?
It did. All right. That is pretty much all I had. My fun question for the end is for Showtime. Is it a boy or a girl, and when do you expect him, my brother?
Amen.
Thank you. It is a boy, and we are expecting November 17th. We actually had a gender reveal at the beach a couple days ago. I was working on launching Zeta while I was on a family vacation. It was a lot.
We tried to leave you alone. We tried.
Well, it's hard when you're excited about something to go to bed at night, even on vacation. So
100%. Well, I'm proud that this is happening, and congratulations, Showtime. I'm blessed as you are. There's another one coming your way, and I look forward to everything you guys do. So thank you so much for having me up.
Much love, Gil.
I'll be in the community.
Thanks so much, buddy. Really appreciate
your
you.
questions. Cheers, buddy. Thank you.
We have actively investing passively. That is a cool name. Come on up, buddy. I sent you an invite. You'll see that at the top of your screen. You just need to accept that.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, where'd we get that from?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
How are you?
Hi, sir.
Hi.
Hey, I just had one question, and it's just around the model of the project and compared to some others that we see. So, with the tokenomics, if the price goes up, everyone's happy. If it goes down, people aren't happy. On another model, you sell NFTs, and profits are distributed through airdrops monthly, based on how many NFTs you have, and airdrop through a stablecoin or some other coin. Mm-hmm. So just curious to see what your thoughts are on the benefits of your tokenomics, how your structure is, as opposed to just selling NFTs without any of the buy-sell pressure and distributing profits to the NFT holders.
Certainly. Can I take this one, Showtime? So one is the way that our masks are fine-tuned, it's like a beautiful German car. We enjoy the organic growth methods that it provides by having the tokens being emitted by existing memberships in a controlled amount. We think that provides a little bit of an organic growth model. We think it also creates a little bit of a like the original thefacebook.com where you had to have a .edu account. We think it adds a little bit of exclusivity. You have to become a member by purchasing off of our decks from another member. So that's that answer. And then also we have another plan for our NFTs that are not related to airdrops, but without going too further into it, our plans for NFTs are going to be a way that you can exacerbate, accelerate, and play with your rewards rates and your zone lifetime. So we can either move the lifetime to the left or the right. We can move the emissions up and down, and we'll be doing that via NFT usage. Did that answer your question, sir?
It did. Yep. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's important to.
Cheers. Thanks for your time.
It's important to keep in mind that anytime you have a project innovate, somebody's going to come out and innovate better, right? That's free market capitalism. If you have 5 projects that come out and say they've done things differently, guess what? There's something they're going to fail at, and then there's someone that's going to come along and fine tune it. And I feel like that's exactly what we've done. It's not a privilege to see people lose money and see projects fail. Don't get me wrong, but having the ability, I'll say, to see these projects and see the chinks in the armor, so to speak, and to say, hey, this is where they failed. Let's fix that. And they failed over here, but they did this right. So let's take all these different pieces. Let's fix the ones that didn't work, and let's take the ones that did work, and let's provide a finalized, there's no such thing as a perfect project, but as perfect as you can possibly get based on the data that you have. And I feel like with the tokenomics, that's certainly been done as well. So I just wanted to add that into the mix.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So we've been going a little while here. We've been going close to 90 minutes. So,
well, there was actually, before we close up here,
sure.
There were a couple questions that were asked in the Discord, and I thought they were good. I wanted to get to them. MLaw had asked one, and there was another gentleman. I want to make sure we get to these ones. They were good. They had a lot of stars on them. MLaw asked, let me find it here. Or can we invite him up? Can he just bring his question up? Or can he ask? He got like 5 stars, and I'm trying to find it.
Who is the individual? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
MLaw. I think it was in general chat.
MLaw, do you want to just come up and ask your question? You cool with that? You want to raise your hand up? There he is. M Law, the man, the myth, the legend. How are you doing?
And I just found it. Kick him down. I'm kidding.
Too late.
How you doing, sir?
I feel like your voices are so much more like professional than mine, but I'll give it a shot. I'll read it verbatim to you, just so it's the same question. And now I've lost it. Story.
Your question, sir, was can Dan extrapolate on the additional services that zone holders receive for their membership fees?
Yeah. I think that's like a really interesting tidbit since you guys are affiliated with a private equity firm. I'm just curious about that.
Dan, can you talk about some of the catalog services that we're looking to offer over the next 6 to 12 months, sir?
Yeah, so from a Zeta standpoint,
He said no.
Sorry, yeah. But do you mean as in which sectors of the capital is going to be invested into, or do you mean as in perks?
I'm thinking more along the lines perks. Like when I went through the white paper, it alluded to actually having access to financial services from an institution that would otherwise be barred from us.
So
I'm interested.
Yeah, so great. Sorry, buddy. Go on. Yeah, so great point. So that this is something that we're going to be offering down the line. We've touched on basically a Zeta Pro membership, okay, which would then offer you the option to invest directly with the Swiss entity and have an account direct with the private equity firm. It does depend. It is something that we've only just touched on. And it obviously comes down to, GATS's, the regulation from their side, and obviously how that would work. Right now, obviously, being part of Zeta, there isn't any sort of KYC process or AML process. Obviously, with a Zeta Pro membership, we haven't really discussed what it would take to get that membership yet. But, if you were to obviously become a client of GATS's directly, then, there will be a formal kind of KYC and AML process. It's something that we would have to discuss further. But there definitely will be options available.
No, that's awesome. Thanks, man. I really appreciate just going a little bit more in depth.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you keep checking the website as well, obviously at some point there will be a section that does explain that in a lot more detail. I don't want to give you an answer that's incorrect right now, as it's something we haven't discussed in great detail.
Yeah, I think a key here is to under-promise and over-deliver. Don't say anything unless you know for a fact you're going to do it, and that's kind of the principles that I like to follow. So, it would be great to come out and say, we're going to do this, and then one of them doesn't work out, and it's like, I shouldn't have said that. So I'd rather wait until we know for a fact 100% is going to happen, and then you guys will be the first to know about it, and then we'll just deliver it like we're supposed to do.
That's it.
Heck yeah. Well, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you bringing me up here.
Thanks, Emla. It's always great hearing you. Always great hearing you. Any other questions you saw in the chat, Gavin, before we wrap things up?
I think there was one more. It was near about.
We'll let Gavin take his time finding that one.
I'm sorry. If Celsius gets liquidated and Tether goes bye-bye, will that affect Zeta even if we're pegged to USDC?
Well, look, people have been screaming the sky is falling with Tether even before I got into crypto years ago, right? I think since 2017, 18, people have been saying Tether's a Ponzi scheme and, Tether just prints money and backs up by Bitcoin and prints more and all this other kind of stuff. And I totally get it. If Tether were to theoretically collapse, I don't think anybody with a certainty can say what that will do to the market. I will say that you'll notice that Tether's having some issues right now. You'll see their market cap is dropping, which is not a good sign. But you notice whose market cap is going up? USD coin, right? So would a Tether collapse affect USD coin? Who knows? I would certainly be remiss if I was to sit here and tell you exactly how that would play out. But I don't foresee that really being a problem because, if you look at the people behind USD coin who have funded USD coin, those people don't lose, right? So I think USD coin's a pretty safe bet. It is the safest of the stable coins in my opinion. And remember, being paired with USD coin means if the market crashes, like, a lot of projects are paired with AVAX, their token crashes along with it. So being paired with USD coin and participating with the fees and everything through USD coin, I think puts us at sort of a unique advantage. And I just don't foresee Tether affecting USD coin, but you know what? If it happens, we'll have to watch it play out. Is that the only other question you had, Gavin, that you saw in the chat?
Yes, sir.
Well, if there's nobody else that has their hand up, there's no other questions. By the way, we are going to build out the FAQ, like I say. Moving forward, live stream. These are going to be live streamed. I'm going to be on camera. It's up to Gavin if he wants to be on camera. I'm sure he will. And we'll stream this, simultaneously, probably to YouTube as well as Twitter. We'll still have the sort of setup in here. But the nice thing about that is we can take questions from those other platforms of people who don't have any idea how to use Discord. So I think it'll really create a unique sort of interactive environment. Do you guys want to end with anything specific? You want to say anything, sort of your exit speech, or are you cool if we just end this?
I've not got anything to add, but I would say that that there's a lot more coming, obviously, from our end.
Gavin?
I just want to say thank you, and we look forward to executing.
Yeah, that's concise, that's simple. There's a lot more coming, guys. We've just scratched the surface. I know it seems like a lot of stuff. We're just getting warmed up here, and I think it's the project the community finally needs, right? It's so cliche to say you are bridging DeFi and traditional finance. It's another thing to actually do it, and it's another thing to do it before anybody even buys in. Right. So I just want to thank you guys for taking this early journey with us. You've put your confidence in us and you've voted with your wallet. And, we intend to give you the project that's by the community, for the community, once and for all. So thanks again, guys, for joining. This will be uploaded hopefully today. I'll also have some tutorial videos out hopefully today on how to buy the pre-sale. And if you have any other questions, feel free to let us know. Take care. Thanks for joining us.